Hey guys, it's Cody. So it's been about 4 months now since I first took delivery of my 2020 Tesla Model Y. And I feel like it's been long enough now that I can actually give a good perspective on some of the pros and the cons of owning this car. I think there's a few things that I would like to have seen differently on this car, and I want to talk about them here so that if you're thinking about buying a Tesla, or more specifically a Model Y, you can make a decision based on some of these thoughts from a current owner. Now, I've definitely had way more positive experiences with this car than negative, but I want to give you an honest take on my thoughts on the car. No car is going to be perfect. There are going to be some downsides, and so I just want to share that with you here. With that being said, let's jump right into it. First, let's talk about the price for the Tesla Model Y. I went ahead and got the Performance Edition here on the car, and with that came a price tag of $63,290. Add on top of that sales tax and some other smaller fees, and I was close to $67,000 for this purchase. Is it worth it? Yeah, I think it is. I think this is going to be one of those big sticking points for a lot of people looking at this car. This is not a car that's just going to get you from point A to point B. With this car here specifically, you're buying the speed and the power, but you're also buying the technology and the cutting edge ability of this car. So this is one of those things that you're not going to purchase if you're on a budget, but if you're looking for something that's cutting edge, this is it. The next thing we have to talk about is the paint here on the car. Now, Teslas are known for having paint issues right out of the factory. When I first picked up the car, there was a number of issues with the paint right off the bat. There was a couple of gaps in the panels that didn't line up, and there was just some, scratches, just some basic things that needed to be buffed out here on the exterior coating of the car. It seems like Tesla's really trying to just pump out as many cars as they can and saying, we'll fix those problems later. What ended up happening for me is I went and purchased the car, I picked it up, I got to drive it for about 2 days. They said, hey, we're gonna fix all these things, but you need to bring it back in, and we're gonna have to give you a loaner car for a week while we fix them. Well, I did that. I got the loaner car for a week, got the car back, and then they realized that they missed a spot. So I had to take it in for a second time and had another week where I did not get to drive this particular car. And this really kind of sucked because at first I wasn't too bugged about it. Then I realized, it kind of sucks to buy a brand new car, spend almost $70,000 on it, have to drive a loaner car, which is still a Tesla, but not the one I bought, for 2 weeks after just buying this car. It's one of those things where I would have rather waited up front and not gotten excited about picking up the car and then been able to drive a car that was already 100%. So it is what it is in hindsight, but it's one of those things that Tesla can continue to improve on. And if you're thinking about buying a Tesla, just be prepared that you're probably going to have some quality control issues yourself. Getting into the car can actually be really nice. You just walk up, you push the handle, and away you go. You can get right into the car. It's really nice to not have to need a key because your phone actually acts as a key for you. As long as you have your phone on you, you're good to go. I personally haven't had any issues with my key or my phone syncing to the car, but I've heard of other people approaching the car and it not recognizing that they've got their phone on them and that the phone is close to the car, and they have issues getting in where they have to walk away, reset the Tesla app, and then go back to the car to be able to get in. So moving on to the inside of the car, even though this massive iPad looking screen is amazing, it seems to get confused whether it's trying to play from your phone, whether it's trying to play from the premium connectivity that you have, or whether it's just trying to play the general radio. I've had numerous issues trying to connect with Bluetooth, trying to get it play from my phone, switch back to my phone, try to answer calls. It just seems like it's a little bit confused on where it's trying to bring the sound from. Also, I've run into a problem where sometimes I'll get into the car and I just don't have the connectivity that I would expect to have, and unfortunately I haven't figured out a way to actually reset this without getting out of the car, putting in park, walking far enough away for the car to turn off, and then coming back and restarting the car altogether. There's no reset button, or there's no way to tell the Tesla, hey, give me a second chance here, try to reconnect to this. Which, by the way, if you're watching this video and you know of a fix for this and you've run into this problem before, let me know in the comments section below how to fix this problem. The games here on the screen are actually really cool. It's awesome to have this and not have to just sit there on your phone while you're waiting for somebody. This has come in handy a couple of times for me already where I've been waiting to pick somebody up and I'm able to just open up the screen and start playing a couple games just to pass a little bit of time. Using the screen as your main control dashboard for driving is actually very easy and very intuitive. I thought it was going to take weeks to get used to using this screen down here on the right hand side as opposed to just looking straight in front of you, but actually within the first day I got super used to it because it's just so intuitive to look down down to the right side. I think where in normal cars you're going to see the radio or the AC controls down in that area anyway, your body and your mind is kind of used to looking in that direction in the first place. So getting used to the screen itself really wasn't a big deal. There are a few things that I wish Tesla would actually add to this screen though. I wish they would add the ability to customize where the different apps are here on the screen. Thankfully, because this car is a smart car and it does get regular over-the-air updates, this is something that they're very likely going to add in at some point. With a traditional car, you wouldn't really have that option without taking it back to the dealership and having a lot of the hardware changed out as well. Also, I wish they'd give you the option to rearrange where the glove box button is here on the screen, because it's just a little bit of annoying to have to hit two buttons just to get the glove box to open, whereas in a traditional car you just reach over and you just pull the lever or push the button and away you go. It is nice to have the extra control to only be able to have the glove box be accessed by the screen so that if somebody breaks in, they can't get into the glove box just automatically, but it would be nice to have this right on the home screen itself. And one additional fix that I wish they would add in is the ability to have airflow on the face vent and on the feet vent at the same time. Unfortunately, the cup holders in the car are a little bit small as well, and there's no larger cup holder in the car. So if you like to carry a bigger water bottle like this, like myself, you have to put it on the passenger seat, you have to put it in the back, you have to put it on the floor, and it just kind of rolls around. There's nowhere really to contain it. So that's one of the things I wish they would have done, is just added in an adjustable cup holder or something to give you the ability to store a larger water bottle like this one. Next, let's talk about the wheels and the tires. Now, this isn't something that's necessarily a downside. It's just something that I had to get used to again after having not driven a car that is set up like this. So you've got 21-inch wheels. The difference here is you've got the low profile tires and you've got the wheel that sticks out past where the tire actually is. So you have to be very careful going over curbs. You have to be very careful making turns. You have to be very careful not to scrape up the edge of the wheel here. One thing that a lot of people are not going to like is this exact feature. A lot of people are not going to want to have to worry about that because you're going to run into certain things on the road that are going to damage the wheel instead of having the tire just go right over it. I also should mention that I forgot how much you feel every single little bump in the road with this little of a tire. Opening up the back hatch, you can see that there is a ton of space in this storage area. You can see all the crap that I've got stored in here, and it's got a ton of really cool features. Of course, it's got the buttons here to lay down the seats, just like that. And it's even got a very cool trunk space just under here. So it's one of those things where you've got a ton of access and storage, but the only problem that I've got with the hatch space here is that it doesn't close like normal hatches. Because this area here is so large, it doesn't close if these things are not pushed forward all the way. So you really have to get those things in there in order for the hatch to close. Again, not a deal breaker, but something that I would say is a little bit annoying just because the back of the hatch is so thick, it's a little bit harder to get that thing closed. Now, while we're talking about the rear hatch, let's talk about this small rear window. You can see that given how big the hatch size is, you would expect this window to be a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, since it's just this big, it's a little bit hard to see out of while you're driving. You know, it's not a big deal when you've got a backup camera, when you've got cameras all around the vehicle and you've got great side view mirrors, but it's one of those things where it would just be nice to see it be a little bit wider, a little bit taller, I should say, to just give you a little bit more viewing out of the back. It's not a deal breaker, but it could be a little bit bigger. Next up, I want to talk about charging, because range anxiety is something that's real and it's something that I've experienced along with many other electric vehicle and Tesla owners. This is something that I was a little bit concerned about because getting only 4 miles per hour at home on the 110 volt system was a little bit scary to me. I'm thinking, you know, okay, well, if I charge that overnight, let's say 12 hours, that only gives me about 50 miles of range. So for right now, I'm still operating on the 110 volt system, but I just got the parts to install to go up to the 220. Once I go up to 220, I should expect somewhere between 23 and 28 miles per hour of charging. So that's more than enough to accommodate any shortage that I'd have throughout the week. This cost me about 250 bucks for the wire and some other little parts, and it's going to cost me about $150 for an electrician to come and hook everything up to make sure that I don't kill myself trying to hook it up myself. It is one of those things that kind of eats up your savings just to have to buy a new charging system. You know, it's about 400 bucks to get this charging system, and you know, that's a little bit unfortunate because it eats into your savings. But I think for most people, honestly, the 110 system is probably enough. You know, if you're not doing a ton of driving, you're going to be just fine using this system, and in most cases there's going to be charge point chargers or even Tesla superchargers in your area that you can stop into if you need to. So jumping in the car and going driving is an experience all on its own. It's fast, fast, it's quiet, and it's a blast to drive. So unfortunately, the autopilot here in the Tesla Model Y is not as good as I would hope it would have been. It just seems to waver in the lane a little bit. The smart cruise control is a little bit annoying because if you're coming up on a turn, it'll slow down way more than it needs to. There's just a lot of little things like that that are not as good as I feel like they should be, just based on my experience of driving the full self-driving version in the Tesla Model S rental that I had. So it's one of those things where I could see it being a little bit better. I will say that on the open highway, autopilot is amazing, but if you're driving around town, you're on the freeway, they're in town, you know, for me, it's not as good as I would like it to be, at least at this point. I think it's one of those things where I've seen how good it can be on other streets, and so I'm a little bit disappointed that it's not that good all the time. It is still really cool that they have this feature in the first place though. I'm not entirely sure that the full self-driving is worth it. You know, given the cost of it, I think it's at $8,000 right now. You know, I don't know that that's cool. You're basically buying the promise of having this technology set up and ready to go in the future, which I think is going to be cool. But knowing Tesla, I won't be surprised if they offer a subscription service for this at that point in the future. So even if it ends up being 50 bucks a month, 100 bucks a month for that feature, I think that's something I would rather do rather than pay $8,000 up front for, you know, only limited features right now. I actually really enjoy the act of driving, so I'd rather have that money in my pocket myself. So in the end, with all things considered, would I change the fact that I bought the Performance Edition? Well, for me, no, not really. You know, there is a part of me that wishes I'd gotten the Long Range Edition just because it would have been cheaper and I could have got a little bit more range out of it. But on the other hand, I love going fast. I had a fast car for years before I bought my last car, which is just a plain old Volkswagen Jetta that I drove for 5 years. So getting back into a quick car, getting into something that is on the cutting edge of technology is so worth it for me. However, for most people, I do think that getting the standard or the long range versions is going to be plenty. Even those versions are plenty quick. And, you know, honestly, I've only found myself in a situation a couple of times where I'm actually able to literally go full power and go that 0 to 60 in just a couple of seconds. So you don't get that opportunity very much. You know, generally it's when you're getting onto the freeway or something like that, but it's just nice to have that power. For me, I think it was an investment that was really worth it. For most other people, probably don't need it, especially given the difference in the price. It's hard to justify that extra $10,000 in price just for bigger wheels, a little bit faster speed, better brakes, better pedals, and a slightly lowered suspension. On the performance model, you do get the top speed increase from 135 to 155, but I mean, honestly guys, how often are you going 135, 145, 155 miles per hour? Not very often. I know for myself, I've probably never broken 120, probably not even that, probably 110 is the highest I've ever gone. And again, with that, you get less range with the Performance Edition, so it's just something to consider there, especially if you're doing a little bit more driving, or if you're gonna use this on a daily basis. You know, going with the Long Range Edition is probably sufficient for most people. There is a small part of me that wishes I'd gone with white instead of black on the exterior color, because black just gets so dirty so quickly, it shows everything, and when it gets dirty, it's something that you definitely notice. But I do have to say that when black is clean right after you get it washed, man, it looks so good. I absolutely love the look of it. I love the shine that you get that you just can't get from white. I absolutely love Tesla. I have purchased their stock as soon as I got the car. It kind of changed my mind about what this company is capable of, because again, you know, the thing that everybody keeps saying is they're not just a car company, they're a technology company, and it goes beyond that. The technology that they're running into with this car can be transferred into other services like their solar roof or future solar HVAC systems. So this is absolutely world changing, and I think it's something that gives them a really bright future. I absolutely love that this car gets better and better instead of just degrading over time like a traditional car does. In fact, I just got an over-the-air update just last night that fully installed and gave me more capabilities that I didn't have even just a couple of days ago. So this is one of the things I love about Tesla. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching the pros and cons of owning a Tesla Model Y after having had mine for a couple of months. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend who's considering buying a Tesla or already has one. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next one.